This is the Fucare Gemini X. It's an e-bike that claims to go 32 miles an hour and up to 140 miles on a charge. We brought it into the tool labs where we're going to carefully measure its speed, acceleration, braking, range, seat height, and more. And then we'll put the results into our score sheet, calculate the values, and find out where it lands on our tool list. Let's go. Hey guys, I'm Rob, and this is the tool list, where we test without the biased intervention of humans and score them using a custom algorithm that gets more accurate the more we test. Today, we're continuing our e-bike series with this. Yes, this is the Fucare Gemini X. It's a front suspension 20-inch fat tire bike with a 750-watt rear hub motor, a pair of 48-volt 15-amp-hour batteries for a total of 30, a claimed top speed of 32 miles an hour, and a range of up to 140, presumably with a lot of pedaling. This is a very unique looking e-bike with an eye-catching frame, and you can get one for yourself for around $1,700, but always check the website of the manufacturers for the latest prices. Now, before we get into our performance testing, we're going to highlight all of its features, which are calculated into the final score, starting with the brakes. The Gemini X has hydraulic disc brakes, which use fluid that transfers the force from the brake lever to the caliper. This is most often more powerful, longer lasting, and requires less maintenance than traditional mechanical brakes. Happy to see them here on the Gemini X. Next, we look at the size of the brake discs. On a heavy e-bike, we want to see at least 180 millimeter, and on the Gemini X, that's exactly what we find. Moving on to safety and starting with the headlight. We offer points for including a headlight, which we think is incredibly important on an e-bike that you may be driving around in traffic. Now, there are extra points if the light's bright enough for us to actually ride at around 20 miles an hour in the dark. The Gemini X light will definitely help you be seen, and it was just bright enough for us to feel safe riding at 20 miles an hour at night. Greatly appreciated. Now, the tail light's important too. It's pretty normal to find a light on the back of all these e-bikes, but there are bonus points to be had if it also acts as a brake light. The Gemini X tail light is indeed a brake light as well. Next up is the suspension. Now, you're likely going to find a set of suspension forks on the front of each bike. This will smooth out bumps and just make your ride more comfortable. Some e-bikes have additional suspension on the rear, but the Gemini X does not. Some also have adjustable suspensions for different size riders, which the Gemini X thankfully does. All right, let's cover throttles and pedal assist. Most e-bikes will have a throttle, either a twist grip like you find on a motorcycle or a thumb throttle you operate with your thumb. The Gemini X has a thumb throttle. It's very comfortable, easy to find, and it works really well. As we explained in our first e-bike test, there are two different types of pedal assist. There's a cadence sensor, which is triggered by pedaling, or a torque sensor that measures the amount of force you put into pedaling and automatically applies a bit of help. Now, cadence sensors are less expensive, but also less intuitive. Essentially, they push your bike to a predetermined speed no matter how fast you're pedaling. Now, here at the tool show, we prefer a torque sensor. The Gemini X has a cadence sensor, but as you'll see in our testing, it's a very powerful bike with a crazy top speed you can reach with only the throttle. So if you prefer to ride this bike like a motorcycle, the cadence sensor won't be a problem for you. It certainly wasn't for us. Let's talk about the battery, specifically the battery size. This bike comes with not one, but two 720 watt-hour lithium-ion batteries for a total of 1,440 watt-hours, which is huge. Which is no doubt also how they're making their crazy distance claims. We'll get to the range test in just a moment. Of course, the size of your battery doesn't matter if it's empty. Each bike comes with a charger rated by how many amps it outputs. The more the amps, the quicker you're back on the road. Now, the Fucare Gemini X actually comes with a pair of 2-amp chargers, which we classify as a single 4-amp solution, which made it tie for first place alongside the Hakoi Cheetah, which also has a pair of chargers. Now, based on its battery size, you're looking at just around 7.9 hours charge time from 0 to 100. That's not great, but it's a price you pay for having such an enormous battery. Now, these bikes are heavy, not just because of the batteries, motors, and electronics, but because the frame has to be strong enough to support all of that as well, which makes the frame heavier too. The Gemini X weighed in at 84.5 pounds, where it came in second. Now, we know that for our audience, storage is super important. If you're going to use this bike to replace your car or truck on a nice day, you'll need places to safely store your stuff. Now, while the Gemini X doesn't include a front or rear rack, they do offer them in a package for $159, which isn't that bad. They sent them along with the bike, and let me tell you, While they're strong and functional with a 30 and 110 pound weight capacity, they're also incredibly cool looking. I put them on after we measured the weight of the bike and did all of our testing, and I don't plan to ever take them off. They're just awesome. The Gemini X has a 7-speed Shimano gear shifter and derailleur. As it turns out, all 6 of the bikes that we've tested so far have the same number of speeds, which quite frankly left us a bit disappointed. When you're really pushing these guys at speeds over 20 miles an hour, even 7th speed will leave you pedaling at a ridiculous pace. A higher gear would go a long way. We're still not really sure why they don't include them. Next, we have height range. Now we bottom out and then extend the seat to the maximum recommended height and measure the difference. The Gemini X can be adjusted from 35 to 41 inches, a range of only 6 inches, which landed it in last place. Now we don't have a good way to test cargo capacity without purposefully destroying each one of these bikes. So during our endurance and acceleration testing, we put around 480 pounds of weight across the bike and our test trailer, and all 6 bikes managed that just fine. So we're going to trust the manufacturer's numbers for this one. The cargo capacity of the Gemini X is rated at 400 pounds, which made it tie for 3rd. Now the Gemini X qualifies as a class 1, 2, or 3 bike with a throttle, but it also has an unlimited mode that allows the throttle to push as hard as the motor will go. The other bikes we've tested were all class 3, which means throttles can only go up to 20 miles an hour. But as you'll see shortly in our performance testing, this thing goes far beyond that 20 mile an hour limit when it's in pure power mode. All right, on to the performance testing. First up, let's look at acceleration. For this test, we wanted to use the throttle only to get from 0 to 15 miles an hour as fast as we could. First, I got on the bike along with a heavy-duty trailer with a few hundred pounds of weights behind me, bringing the total to 480 pounds. Then for the other end, we've got her. Some say she naturally smells like burnt tires and has pedal assist tattooed on her lower back. Yikes. All we know is she's called the Twig, and at only 120 pounds, she's likely going to be moving much faster and go farther on a charge. Let's get testing. Now we learned early on that you can rarely trust the computers on these bikes. So instead, we're using a highly accurate performance analyzer to get exact speed and time. With the Gemini X loaded to full weight, it took 14.48 seconds to get to 15 miles an hour. Tying with the Hakoi Cheetah for 4th place. Next, the Twig took a turn, and naturally, she was able to hit 15 mile an hour in only 4.49 seconds, putting it in 3rd place on that chart. Now just for reference, Fucare says their motor is rated at 80 Newton meters of max torque. Moving on to top speed. To get this number, we turned them all on to their highest assist, and I pedaled as hard as I could on a very flat road. Now, when this one topped out, the computer said I was going 32 miles an hour, but our precision instruments revealed a top speed of just 29 miles an hour. Still very fast, but I really wanted it to go 32. Even at 29 miles an hour, it tied for 1st place along the Hobsco Hob Alpha. Now, once you're going that fast, you're gonna wanna stop fast too. To test the brakes, I sped each bike up to exactly 15 miles an hour and then applied both brakes as hard as I could. The Gemini X was able to come to a stop in only 8 feet, which was absolutely outstanding, coming in 2nd only behind the Hobsco Hob Cart. And finally, let's talk about range. Fucare says you should be able to get up to 140 miles on pedal assist mode. Since we can't reliably pedal, we set each bike to 20 miles an hour and ran the full battery out on throttle alone. Each bike was run around our 3-mile test circuit that simulates a typical city commute with lots of speed adjustments and turns. I would ride it first with my 480-pound setup and run the battery down until the bike quit. Then we would completely recharge and have the Twig do the same. With a full battery and a heavy load, I was able to get a staggering 31.5 miles, the absolute best we've ever seen on our heavy load test. Obviously made possible by those 2 enormous batteries. The Twig was able to get a very impressive 56.08 miles, 2nd place to only the Roma Link Dolphin, which has the same size batteries, but went almost 10 miles further in our testing. To determine efficiency, we took the Twig's range number and calculated how many watt hours it was burning through per mile, and it came out to 25.68 watts, earning it 4th place for efficiency. And finally, let's talk value. To assign a value score, we took the current price of each bike and then tallied up all the bike's other points and then divided those points by the dollar amount. While our resulting number is arbitrary to you, it allows us to generate a rank that you can understand. In this case, the Fucare Gemini X earned a value score of 6.22, which puts it in second place for value. Not bad at all. Now, I want to remind you that all these e-bike companies regularly put these bikes on sale. That can drastically change the value of these bikes and their position on our list. So if a bike checks off most of the boxes for you and it suddenly goes on sale, it might just be your best purchase. So now we're done examining the features, testing the performance, and even measuring its value. When we add up all those scores, we get a final score that ranges between 1 and 10. If you'd like to learn more about our adaptive scoring system, which is a little bit different, check out our first e-bike review where we go more in depth. With everything calculated, the Gemini X gets an 8.4, which puts it in first place overall. And for what it's worth, after putting a few hundred miles on each of the 6 e-bikes that we tested so far, both Sarah and I personally would choose a Gemini X for ourselves. Sarah pointed out that the rather wide frame, though, means that your legs might rub against it when you pedal. But again, this bike performs so well, goes so far, and doesn't require you to pedal to get your top speed. So if you're not out for exercise but just want to cruise, this is an incredibly comfortable and capable bike. And when you put on those awesome metal baskets, you'll be able to get you and your stuff to an awful lot of places before those batteries run dry. In the coming days, we'll be publishing a video for each of the other 5 e-bikes that we've tested here on the tool list. And shortly after that, we'll launch our first class of power tool testing drill drivers. You won't want to miss it. Once again, I want to remind you that we realize our adaptive scoring system is a complex feature that kicks out very easy to understand scores. At least that's the goal. But it's important that this system helps people make informed purchases, or why else do it? So if you have any ideas, critiques, or questions about our testing process, do us all a favor and leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer each one. Now, full disclosure, while our testing is all unbiased, we feel obligated to let you know that this bike was provided to us for free from Fucare, specifically for this testing, with the understanding that we don't control the test nor the scores. Consequently, the participating brands have no say in our scoring or content. That's it for this one. If you'd like to learn more about the Fucare Gemini X, we'll link to the Fucare website in the description. I want to thank Blaklader and Spyder for continuing to support our tool testing and our community of tool fans. We'll see you next time.